there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. We are going to be creating a window card and I have not made one of these in a pretty long time. And the best thing is that you can adapt these using pretty much what you already have in your stash. I'm positive that you will have some kind of shape die, or you could just cut out your own from the front of your card. I am using these Hexagon frame dies. I've been really enjoying using these recently. They cut out not only the shape, but they cut out a very fine, delicate, thin frame as well at the same time. And I have been using these a whole lot. I have got a lot of videos where I've been using these. If you are interested in seeing the other ways that these dies can be used, then I will link some of those videos down in the description box below. But I have got the front of my card here. Now this is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card base. And I have run this through my die cutting machine with the frame pretty much in the center of the frame. I mean, I just eyeballed it. I'm not really into measuring too much. Then I am taking a piece of acetate, but any sort of recycled plastic material. I even have videos where I've just used plastic bags that work really well for this. So anything there to create that nice little window on the front. Then I am going to start working in the center. Now this is obviously a window card where you can see right through the front window, and that kind of becomes the decoration that you can see on the front, but it's actually on the inside of the card. So it's a window through to the inside and it becomes the front decoration as well. So I am using the Technique Tuesday Meadow flowers. Again, this is a really old stamp set that I have. I think this is still available, and if it is, I will link it in the description box below. This is from Technique Tuesday, as I said, but honestly, you can use any stamps that you want to go in the middle. It doesn't have to be flowers, it could be anything at all, it could just be a really big sentiment. But I am going to use some VersaFine Onyx black ink to stamp it. I used my anti-static powder bag beforehand because I really like to emboss these images. I just feel like the extra shine is really gorgeous on a card like this. And I also like the fact that it means I can't smear or smudge the ink no matter what I do from here. So even though it looks gorgeous, there's actually a very practical reason behind it. It means one less thing that can possibly go wrong during this card making process. So I have melted that, and then there's a nice little shine to that there, and you can see I placed the stamp exactly so it looks, you can see it through the frame in the window. Now I am going to color this very simply. I'm using some Mowed Lawn spiced marmalade and some mustard seed, and they are what I'm going to use. However, anything is going to work well here. You could use, if you're going to use something like alcohol markers, you do have to be a little bit careful about the bleed through here. This card base is not watercolor cardstock, so I'm having to be careful about the amount of water that I use. However, I really like these Ultra water brushes because I find that they put out the least amount of water. They don't kind of saturate the brush, which is something that I really like about these ones. But even just a plain paintbrush and some ink is going to work just fine, or you could just use coloring pencils. Something like that is going to work well as well. Now there's a really specific reason why I make cards like this, where the inside image is actually taking up quite a lot of the writing space that you might find inside of a normal card. Now the explanation for that is that sometimes I have a lot to write and I might be writing to a friend or a really kind message as well, and sometimes I prefer, or other people prefer, just when you need to write a minimal amount, you really just have a quick little message for the event or the occasion to write, and you don't need to write anymore. So these types of cards are good for those occasions and for people like that. So that's why I think about the cards I'm creating, and this is just one of those types of cards where I obviously wouldn't want to write a whole lot in the center, but there is plenty of room that's still hidden that I'm able to write enough. And if you want to write more, you can write it on the back of the card as well. That's what I usually end up doing if I do run out of space. Now here is a little trick that I'm going to show you for lining things up. This is some temporary adhesive. This is the Tombow one and my favorite. I'm taking the die cut that cut from the inside of my original cut that I cut out the big window from, and there's a little gap because obviously these dies cut the little frame as well. Then I pop some more temporary adhesive on the top side of that little bit there. I pop my piece of paper down the side that I actually want to show. So at the moment this is the back side, it's not going to be the side that shows. I'm popping the good side that I want face down. Then once I have everything lined up, I am going to push down on the center there, and that temporary adhesive will adhere that hexagon to this side. And this way I know when I want to cut out a hexagon from my front piece here, everything is going to line up perfectly. Now this is kind of my problem because I didn't measure from the beginning to make sure everything was perfectly centered. So I didn't want to just guess where the frame would be and kind of end up having it wonky. So that's what I do if I need to find out exactly where to pop the frame. And then this is the best part about it, is you just pull everything apart and all it takes is just a little rub with your finger and all of that temporary adhesive comes off with no risk of ripping paper or anything silly like that. So that is why this is my favorite temporary adhesive by far. I have tried so many and this one is a really good, it's a stronghold but temporary adhesive. Now I'm also going to cut out a little plain hexagon here, and this is because I just need a tiny little border. You'll see why in a minute. There are lots of different ways to do this, but this is just kind of my favorite way of doing it. And you can see every time I cut out a little hexagon that I am going to get a little tiny thin frame, and I just pop these in a little container beside my workspace, and either my kids or I use these up no problems. Now I have chosen some Peacock Feathers Distress Oxide ink to colour the outside part here. You'll see why in just a second, but I chose that tealish kind of bluish colour because it goes really nicely with the pattern paper that I chose, and it's also going to set off that gorgeous yellows and oranges that we chose for the flowers inside the card as well. Now I'm cutting off a little bit of the excess, and again you'll see why in just a second. This is to create a little layer on the inside. I'm popping double-sided tape on the front of the card here. So this is the very card front. The card is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. The reason that I'm using the double-sided adhesive instead of liquid adhesive is I prefer to use the dry adhesive or the double-sided tape when I'm working with acetate. I find that I get a much better adhesion. There's no risk of it kind of seeping out and colouring the acetate at all or smudging on it, so I definitely always use double-sided tape when I am using the acetate. Then I have 2 different widths here of my favourite foam tape. This is the only foam tape that I use nowadays. It's really easy to work with, perfect amount of stick. I really love the 2 widths that it comes in. They're both super handy. And you definitely don't have to pop this layer up at all. I am just choosing to because it gives the card a little bit of dimension, but you don't have to. You don't have to use foam tape here. Or you could just use some fun foam beneath it as well. I really like popping the really long strips of foam tape around the outside, and then that way you kind of can't see into the card and see any of the messy little bits of foam tape that I've used. That just helps a little bit as well, keep the card nice and neat from the sides. Then I'm popping a little bit of liquid glue on the back of the foam here. Now I know that seems counterintuitive because it's already sticky, but I really at this point don't want to get the double-sided tape, the foam tape, in the wrong place. I don't want to have to kind of rip everything on this card. I don't want to have to risk that at all. So by popping the liquid adhesive on the back there, I am able to make sure that I can slide it around and make sure it's in exactly the right place. Now this is the All the Birthday stamp set. This is a favorite. You guys have been seeing this a lot recently, but it is just like one of those stamp sets, and it's exactly why I purchased it. I chose this one really carefully on purpose. There are so many different birthday sentiments that I'm able to use, and I'm going to mix and match them. I'm going to choose this little gorgeous happy birthday here. I lined it up on top of the acetate so I knew that it would show through, and that way the card technically has a sentiment showing through on the front as well, even though it is stamped on the inside. And you can see that is our gorgeous window card. This was a really fun one to create, and as I said, this is kind of one of those cards where you don't have so much room to write on the inside, but you can see it's nice and clean from the sides and a gorgeous bright yellow and orange flowers. So let me know what you think in the description box down below. Do you have those cards where you don't like to write a whole lot, or is that just me? But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I will leave links to extra videos using those hexagon frames and all of the products that I've used in this video in the description box below, so check those out. Make sure you like and subscribe if you are enjoying these types of videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, bye!